This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcast on Twitter. And welcome into a brand new live edition of the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast. I am your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by Sports Illustrated beat writer Schuyler Callihan. You can catch us typically every Tuesday with a brand new episode of the Bleav in Panthers podcast on the Bleav Network. A lot to get to here. Schuyler visited the Panthers rookie minicamp last weekend, so a lot to get into there. His thoughts on what he saw, reporting as a beat writer for the Carolina Panthers for Sports Illustrated. Rumors. Look at all these rumors around me every day. We got rumors going on. Some of the weirdest rumors probably attached to the Carolina Panthers. We'll touch on those here to start the show. And we'll also get some NFL news. Jair Alexander getting the bag from the Green Bay Packers. We'll talk about that as well. And we'll get you set up for next week. We kind of waited a bit to breathe after the schedule release. Next week, we'll actually unveil our schedule predictions for the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers had the third easiest strength of schedule according to the NFL. And Schuyler, that's one of the stats that I hate the most out of all stats in all of sports, the strength of schedule, because literally none of these teams are the same as last year. So how can you say it's an easier schedule as if they're playing the team from last year when all the 17 teams the Panthers are going to play are completely different from when they were last year? So never understood that stat, but according to NFL, the Panthers have it easy going into 2022.
What I'll say about that too, real quick, is sometimes it's not really about the strength of schedule for all 32 teams, but more so how tough that schedule is for that particular team. Like the Panthers, like we know their situation is going to be tough. So you look at their schedule. Yeah, it's definitely not the third easiest, at least for them. If they rolled out 32 possibilities, this would not be the third easiest that they could have had.
So we'll get to all of that and more in just a bit. But first, a word from one of our sponsors at Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments for the NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, fights, and NFL futures. Bet Online is your continued source for all sports wagering needs, including live betting and the fan favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's really easy to get started. Just head over to their website or use the mobile device to sign up and use promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV, as you can see right there up above. You'll get 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And where we start is the NFL Panther rumor mill, because the Panthers have been all over it the past 3 or 4 days in particular. Starting off, actually, head coach Matt Rule spoke to the media at the beginning of rookie minicamp. So I guess it was Friday when he spoke. And this had kind of come out, this weird rumor about former Saints head coach Sean Payton being attached to the Carolina Panthers. A report surfaced on Front Office Sports a couple of days ago that the Panthers were eyeing former Saints coach Sean Payton for 2023. Coach Matt Rule has posted 5-win back-to-back seasons. They're still looking for a franchise quarterback. It appears Rule's seat is hot from the outside, but me and you, Schuyler, we've talked about this numerous weeks where owner David Tepper has given zero indication that Matt Rule's on the hot seat. Actually gave him a vote of support a couple weeks ago in his annual media talk. So this whole idea that while he's saying publicly that Matt Rule's fine, everything's straight, and then for this to come out, I'm not very familiar with front office sports. Let me just start right there. B, all the other media outlets just picked it up and ran with it. And I'm seeing this trend where a lot of the national media in particular don't really seem to do their due diligence when it comes to making sure these things are accurate or not. You're a bit different. While you're reporting for a national media outlet in Sports Illustrated, you're based where the Panthers are, down in Charlotte. So you get to see more of the day-to-day and the certain beats that this team goes through. Before I get your reaction on this, let's hear from the coach himself, Matt Rule. Question about this on Friday. about the situation and how he goes about handling this. This video, courtesy of our friends over at Carolina Blitz.
With regards to that report, first I heard of it. Dave called me and told me that, that it was going to come out, that they had called him and that there was nothing to it. I know Dave Tepper well enough to believe that he wouldn't be talking to another coach right now. When he came to my house 2.5 years ago, he told me that this was a 5-year rebuild. That's what he said to me. And he convinced me then to come be a part of it with him and build it with him. And, we're not where we want to be. And I don't think it's going to take 5 years. I don't want it to take 5 years, but those are the words that he said to me. And so, I'm looking forward to taking a step this year. I like our football team. I like the way that we're working. I like this draft. And I have a lot of faith in the people in this building, the way everyone's working. And I certainly have a lot of faith in Dave. That's why I left it. I left a great job with people that I loved and cared about to come here because I believed in his long-term vision to get this thing done. And so, do I want stories like that out there? Probably not. But at the same time, I also know a lot of people lose their edge when great stories about you. So I'm going to continue this to grind and work and, see where things fall. At the end of the day, like I said to you guys, we went 5-12 last year. We had disappointing at the end of the year. I can't expect many stories to be good. There's been lots of things said. If anything, for me on a personal note, it's made me really, again, just a value what's important. And I'll just say this because I think people need to hear it. Like on the inside, when you walk in these walls every day and you're around our players every day, this is a really good place. Like this is we got more guys here that don't have to be here. So no matter what the perception is on the outside of like, man, that looks a little bit like this, it's not. We have great practices. We have coaches going to dinner with players. We have coaches golfing with players. We have a great interaction. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes when things are a little bit like this on the outside, and sometimes it brings people together. So I coached 2 years with masks on and COVID. Like I said, Dave told me we had a 5-year plan. We're 2.5 years into it. It was hard 2 years. And so I'm not making excuses for it. It's not nearly where we want it to be, but I'm happy with where our guys are at. I'm happy with where this roster is. And so when I walk in this morning and see Jeremy Chin, he's training not to have a bad team next year. He's training on a Friday when we're off to go have a good team. So a lot of good things are happening. I'll just keep my focus on the guys because that's what I got into coaching for. I got into coaching to help players, and so I'm blessed to be here. So.
I let that run all the way through because I really wanted to give context to what he was saying. And we've joked on here that when he starts to talk really fast, that he's trying to either get past a point or he's hiding something or whatever the case may be. I thought he was actually being pretty genuine in that blurb there, where there's only so many ways they can say that he's not on a hot seat. And I feel like every week when he has to go speak to the media, they're peppering him with questions about, do you feel like you're on the hot seat? Are you catching the vibe that he's just kind of, taking it as it comes? Because he doesn't really strike me as the type of person that feels like he's on a hot seat. Like that's the one thing I've taken from him the past month or two. It didn't feel like he's on a hot seat at all when you talk to Matt Rule.
No, I've never once had any indication that he was on the hot seat. And I think a lot of that is because of David Tepper. Yeah, he didn't come out and say anything for how long? Almost 2 full years. But when he finally came out, he publicly supported Matt Rule and supported the direction of the program and didn't have a problem saying it. He actually thanked Matt Rule, and it was in the very first minute of his press conference a couple of weeks ago. So I don't think that Matt Rule's on any type of hot seat. I really firmly believe that. As much as people want to think that, because he's won
people
five,
want him.
five
Yeah,
games.
people want him on a hot seat, but he's really not. He's really not on a hot seat at all.
He's won 5 games back-to-back years. But we know, as Matt just said, coming into this was not going to be a quick turnaround. It wasn't going to be an easy rebuild. Some rebuilds are shorter than others. And I think everyone goes back to when John Fox was here and says, well, look where John Fox had the Panthers in year 2. Okay. But that's an anomaly. How often does that happen? Compared to all the other rebuilds that have happened in the NFL, that's not the expectation.
Yeah,
But that's an anomaly that happens once every so often, and it never happens on a regular basis. So for Matt Rule, what does he have to do to keep his job? Just show progress. I don't think anybody in that building expects them to contend for a Super Bowl or even to maybe even make the playoffs. But if they can contend week by week, or not contend, but compete week by week, show that they're making progress, especially on the offensive side, that we know the defense is what it is. But if they can show that leap, and maybe Matt Corral shows that in the back half of the season, he's going to be here in 2023. Just get used to it. He got a 7-year contract for a reason.
Yep.
When he said, David Tepper, you gave me essentially 5 years of that because you said this is going to be a 5-year plan. I'm just telling you, expect it to be longer than you think, unless crap absolutely hits the fan and they lose 15 games.
I can't even see that happening with the schedule that they have in front of them, the division they're in, and the talent on this team. Like, we really need to start talking about the past 3 drafts. And we started last week talking about that. And there's a lot of young talent on this team where it feels like now they're at a point where they just have to figure out how to close games, how to finish games, and how to learn how to win at this level, because a lot of the team, 2/3 of this team was playing college ball, 2-3 years ago. So,
and I'll say this too: Matt Rule was just in college 2-3 years ago,
exactly.
And this is kind of a new ball game for him. And I understand that you necessarily don't want to have your head coach trying to figure out how to be an NFL head coach, but if you're a Panthers fan, that's the cards you've been dealt with, Matt Rule. David Tepper went to college, got Matt Rule, and he had to learn how to be an NFL head coach. And that's why these first 2 years have been the way they have been. The personnel wasn't there. The coaching staff certainly wasn't there. And he had to coach through COVID for 2 years. It's not an excuse, but it's part of the realistic part of it. So
we really need to talk more about how many first-year head coaches were there in pro sports the year COVID hit. Like, I'd be curious to go back and find out how many had to come in and start from scratch, because was he the only NFL coach hired that year?
That I can't remember that year. I feel like there was another one.
I want to say maybe the dude from the Bengals got hired. Zach Brown, wasn't that his name? The coach there?
Zach Taylor. I can't remember. I can't remember
because it was right.
It was, but yeah, I mean,
he's super young too.
The biggest thing about this is, like, not only did he have to do with COVID, he had to rebuild the roster. And when you don't get that opportunity to rebuild and be with the people and interact with the players you're trying to build around, it makes it difficult. But more so, to learn how to be an NFL head coach, it's completely different from college. You don't have to deal with classes, but you have to deal with other stuff. And I think too, he had to learn that to be a good NFL head coach, you had to surround yourself with experience on the coaching staff. He didn't have that the first 2 years. Those first 2 years, he went with what made him feel comfortable. Now he understands, like, okay, I've got to go outside of being comfortable to make this thing actually work. And to be honest with you, for a guy that's quote unquote on the hot seat, I thought he made some really impressive hires. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see how this plays out. I like the McAdoo hire. I like how he brought on some guys with pro experience. To me, that shows that he's not stubborn, because I think people want to paint him a certain way. That he's stubborn, he's stuck in his ways, he's never going to change. But all I've really seen is him trying to adapt and learn how to do his system at this level. And every place he's been, 3rd year, that's been the year you've seen the leap, whether it's at Temple or at Baylor. This is year 3 here in Carolina. He's had 3 great drafts now. It looks like, and we'll talk about this in the rookie minicamp section, that they may have stumbled on something here at quarterback. We'll talk about that. But the other rumor,
two other things real quick, and about this Matt Rule stuff. One is, like, the fans. You can have your opinion, okay? You can hate the guy, you can want him fired all you want, but let's stop this fire Matt Rule in May. It's not going to happen. He's going to be coaching the Carolina Panthers in 2022, so you might as well stop the hashtag. He's not going to go anywhere.
It's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time, a waste of tweets, a waste of breath, everything. If we get to middle of October, end of October, and the Panthers absolutely stink, then guess what? You can have that. You can go for it all you want. But until that happens, how about we just turn the page and let's just focus on this season and put the rest in the past, because there's no use of doing that. It just makes no sense.
let's actually try to throw some support behind the franchise instead of nitpicking every little thing that they do and how you would do it better on Madden 2022 or whatever it might be. I see so many guys.
Out here, Desmond.
Yeah, man. I see. Oh, they're going to all come at me on Twitter as I'm putting my Twitter handle at the bottom of the screen here. But no, I see all the time dudes that played Madden all day long and they think they could be a better head coach than an actual head coach or an actual general manager in the NFL. I wouldn't have done that. I would have done that. Well, that's why you're sitting on your couch at home. So just give them a chance to get this underneath them. Again, like Schuyler said, the dude got a 7-year deal. To fire him after year 2 when one of those years was COVID, just in hindsight, let's pull back and look at the big picture here. Do we want to be one of those flash in the pan teams, or do we want to be like what David Tepper said when he bought the team? He wanted to model it after the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers basically have a winning record every year.
How many coaches every year in the last 50 years?
Yeah, they've had 3 head coaches in the past 50 years. Like this whole microwave society of I want it now, I want it hot. I don't want to have to wait. I don't have to build. Like, I don't have to go through adversity to get there. It's spoiled fans kind of in a sense. And it didn't help this past Super Bowl because we watched the Cincinnati Bengals basically make their way to the Super Bowl, beating, top teams in the AFC.
But look what they had the most important position.
Exactly. And that's if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have it. If you have 2 quarterbacks or you have, 0 quarterbacks, you have none. So that's the thing we have to figure out here. I like the fact that they have built everything else up. They are primed to be one of these surprise NFL teams. Every year you get a team that nobody was looking at that's going to make the playoffs. And with an additional playoff spot in the NFC and AFC, I could see 3 NFC South teams making the playoffs. We got plenty of time to get to all that, though. The other rumor I wanted to get to, that I just kind of laugh at here. Drew Brees has been attached to the Carolina Panthers this week. He gave a hint in a tweet that he might return to football, although looking at the tweet, it looks like he was just joking about it. He basically says he's stepping away from NBC. He was there for a year. To be honest, I don't know how great he was in studio. It might not be the best thing for him to do that Sunday Night Football gig with NBC. Said he's stepping away. Said he didn't know what he's going to do next. He might play wiffle ball. He might play football. He might do this, that, or third. Everybody else kind of took that to mean, oh, Drew Brees might be coming back. And famed NFL columnist Peter King suggested that Carolina Panthers could be just desperate enough to try and acquire him, and also noted that the Seahawks might be a good fit for him too. This just sounds more like, okay, what teams out there need a quarterback? Drew Brees is a quarterback. Let's attach him to these 2 teams. Like, that doesn't really seem like there's any kind of rhyme or reason to any of it. But
Desmond, I'll say this. This is also, and Peter King is well respected, I think, to a certain extent, but he does throw some outlandish stuff out there. And one thing earlier this offseason was with the Panthers, and he said that he truly believed that the Panthers could swap Sam Darnold and Jimmy G straight up. That never
make any sense. Yeah, why would they do that? Why would either side do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
So, yeah, I mean, Drew Brees is not going to be a Carolina Panther. He's not going to be a Seattle Seahawk or anybody anywhere else. If he's going to come back, it's going to be with the Saints, but I don't even see him coming back.
I don't really think the Saints would want him back. I'm trying to remember the last time we watched him play. Yeah. I mean, they've signed Jameis Winston. They've signed Taysom Hill. They don't. Drew Brees is 43. Not everybody is Tom Brady. See, this goes back to what I was just saying, how we see certain things we want to apply to everything. And like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is 37. Tom Brady is 1 billion years old, still playing. That doesn't mean every quarterback can make it to, in their mid 40s to play. And the last time we saw Drew Brees, his arm was literally falling off. Like he couldn't get the ball like 8 yards down the field. So I don't understand this. I don't know. Why would you want Drew Brees here? Like, your team is the youngest team in the NFL, and we would bring in a 43-year-old quarterback that can't throw the ball? Like, after we just drafted a quarterback? It doesn't make any sense.
On top of that, I just saw a tweet from, I believe it was Ed Werder, that said he just had shoulder surgery. So he wouldn't even be ready to go till September, October.
Why would he want to come back? Why would he want to come here? Like, out of all these years playing in New Orleans, and one of their biggest rivals is the Carolina Panthers, why would Drew Brees sign with Carolina instead of anywhere else? Why here?
Is he even under contract? Because, I mean, if that's the case, he would have to be traded.
Right. Now I know with Payton, that situation, he is under contract.
Yeah.
And that story was that he's underneath it until next year.
Which I'll say with Sean Payton, like I don't see them firing Matt Rule for Sean Payton next year. If they were to do, because they're going to have to make a trade that's going to involve first round picks and stuff, that's not going to happen. The only way that Sean Payton would end up in Carolina is if it's in 2024 when his contract would be over with the Saints and they could just go ahead and hire him and not have to make a trade for him. But even then, I mean, is the Panthers might be eyeing him, but would he even be interested in the job? I mean, that's something everyone's got to think about too.
So with Drew, I'm looking at his contract. He actually is an unrestricted free agent this year.
Okay.
So it ended last year. Having said that, he's 43 years, 133 days old. None of this makes sense. So I didn't want to give too much life to this. I just wanted to address it to be like, no, bad Panther fan. Don't think that. It's not going to happen. There's no reason for it to happen. So the whole Drew Brees thing just it popped up, and I was like, wow. And then this Davante Adams made a comment earlier this week that that during his draft process, the team that spoke to him the most was the Carolina Panthers, and he said that he thought the Panthers were going to draft him, and he was preparing to come to Carolina to play with Cam Newton. And instead, they went with Kelvin Benjamin instead in 2014. Of course, the very next year, the beginning of the offseason workouts, Kelvin Benjamin blows out his ACL, I think it was, misses the entire 2015 season. Of course, that's the year that Cam, Josh Norman, and Thomas Davis and those guys led the Panthers to the Super Bowl 50. They lost to the Denver Broncos. Bad day to have a bad day. But it's interesting to think about what that group would have been if a second-year Davante Adams was in that group with Ted Ginn Jr., who were the receivers on that team?
Was Funchess around then, or
I think Funchess was
little...
actually. I think Funchess was still on the team in 2015. I think he was, yeah, because I think he was like a 2 or 3 on that squad. And I think Ted Ginn was kind of the de facto. They didn't really have a de facto one. Philly Brown was one of the wide receivers on that team. The one dude that was like the third down guy.
Steve Smith was there, or was he not?
Who
was Steve Smith? Was that his last year?
No, well, I want to say 2013 was his last year.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
And then 2014, Panthers started out really slow. That 2014 was the year Cam had the car accident on the turnpike coming into the stadium or whatever, and missed a week. Came back, and then they rattled off like 4 or 5 straight at the end of the year. Won the conference or won the division with a sub 500 record actually. And then that set up for 2015 when they went 15-1, all the good stuff for there. But yeah, it's kind of cool not cool. It's actually kind of sad to think of Davante Adams in a Panther uniform, getting darts thrown to him from Cam Newton in his prime MVP season. Any thoughts on that, or you just want to like kind of, sob about it and move on to?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of us would like to sob and move on, but I mean, yeah, that would have been an interesting situation because Kelvin Benjamin, after his rookie year, I mean, I think some people thought, okay, they may have something here with Kelvin. And then this is a guy that he signed last year after sitting out the last couple of years with the Giants to try and make an NFL comeback as a tight end. And he lasted, maybe 3 or 4 months. Giants cut him, and again, he's back out of football. So, yeah, I mean, would Davante Adams still be here? Would be, I think, the bigger question. But regardless, just to have him for something or some amount of time would have been incredible.
And that's something I'm gonna write that down too, because I'm looking for things to keep us entertained during the summer. And one of the things I forgot that I jotted down, I'm jotting it down again. I want to start like a what if series. You know how Marvel has what if, multi different dimensions and different universes and whatnot. We should do a what if with the Panthers. Like one of the things I've always brought up on my Saturday morning show, the Rundown on Tobacco Road. What if in 2018 the Panthers had selected Lamar Jackson in the first round, who was still on the board, as opposed to DJ Moore? Like, what would have happened with the franchise then? Does Ron Rivera is he still here? Is Cam Newton still here for a year or two mentoring?
Does Lamar even work in that?
Does Lamar even? Yeah. So like, I mean, you kind of think, well, if they put him in, really the Ravens put him in the same type of offense. They just gave more of the reins to him in the passing game. You kind of see him learning from Cam and going from there. I don't know, but that's one of the things we might do. What if Steve Smith was never cut or sent from here? Like stuff like that. So we'll work on that a little bit too. And if you have suggestions for that, you can definitely hit us up for any kind of topic you want us to hit with that during the summer months. We'll definitely be able to get to that and expand out the Panther podcast during the summer. Quick NFL notes before we get to rookie minicamp review. The NFL met with quarterback Deshaun Watson yesterday, I believe. Yesterday in Texas. He is planning on taking the Cleveland Brown offense to the Caribbean, I believe I saw, to do some practice stuff. What's your over-under in terms of Watson getting suspended? Because he's going to get suspended. We just don't know how long. Is it a whole season? Is it 4 games? Like, where do you think this goes? Because really right now it's just all 22 civil suits against the man. But he also has a $250 million guaranteed fully contract with the Browns now. So something has to come to a head in terms of when he's going to be able to get on the field again.
I mean, I think the consensus around the league is that it's probably going to be about 6 games at minimum. I don't think we'll see anything less than that. There was another situation that had happened. I can't remember who they were comparing it to. And that particular player got a 6-game suspension too. Maybe was it Ben Roethlisberger?
I was going to say Roethlisberger had something like, but wasn't his reduced to 4 or something like that? And his was from
he appealed it and then it was reduced to 4. But I don't know if they would.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't bother with this one. And keep in mind, the Browns structured that contract for year 1, anticipating some sort of suspension where most of his money is coming in the form of a signing bonus, and then his salary really starts next year, not this year.
And the good thing for Carolina, and I know we'll dive into this into more next week about the schedule, but they've got the Browns week 1, which Deshaun's definitely going to be suspended for that. So you don't have to face him. And then in week 4, you get the Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins suspended the first 6 games. So they kind of caught a break there.
So we'll use that next week in our schedule predictor to kind of figure this out. Because as I look at the roster, maybe it's just because it's May and everything's optimistic and we're all 0-0, and the draft just ended, so you got the glow of that going on. But I always feel optimistic about the Panthers going in. I mean, you really only need to be a little over 500 to get into the playoffs in the NFL. So it's not like you got to be a world beater 14-3 team. It's not like we're going to predict that. But I think it'll be interesting to look and see. A lot of these games the Panthers lost over the past 2 years felt like they were close contests. People forget they were a NFL record-breaking field goal away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 years ago on the road in Arrowhead. And that was with a team that, like you said, Coach Rule had just met like 2 months prior via Zoom. So let's chill a little bit and let's see, what they can do with all the talent they've built on here. Speaking of which, the rookie minicamp concluded this weekend. Schuyler was there. I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the bigger names that the Panthers drafted a couple of weeks ago and what you saw out of them. Of course, starting off with our first round pick, Ikem Ekwonu, the left tackle from NC State. From what you saw from him, any doubt in your mind he's a day 1 starter?
Oh, no. 100% day 1 starter. Dude looks like he's been in the NFL for 5 years. I mean, he is a beast. Like,
talk to me. I love it.
Looks like the part, walks the part, talks the part. But he's very humble. And I think that's what a lot of Panthers fans are really going to like about him is he knows his place, but he knows that they need him to be that franchise guy. And, man, I mean, there was a couple of drills where they were having the other offensive linemen because they were very short on people. They didn't have a ton of people there. Where the one offensive lineman would be holding the pad, the other guy would be blocking up against it. There was a couple times, Desmond, where the guy on the receiving end of that pad went to the ground about 3 or 4 times in a row. It was just pretty funny. The one time the guy stumbled, and I was like, "Oh, there he goes!" But they were doing some of these drills with those big yoga balls, and they were like almost tapping it like they were playing a piano and doing some footwork drills with it. And it's the smallest things. Like it's not like, oh my gosh, he looks great doing that, but it's just like those types of drills when you see how light he is on his feet. It is like the dude could walk on eggshells and not crack a single egg. I mean, he is just insanely athletic, has great footwork, has great mechanics, great technique. I'm telling you, if he does not end up being one of the best NFL tackles in the next 5 years, I will be shocked because he looks the part 100%.
See, and if they had to go lineman first round, I'm fine with that. Like if you're bringing in a dude that's like a 10-year stalwart at that position, competing for all pros and
look at the last 10 years,
stuff like that. Yeah, they haven't had since Jordan Gross. Like they've
had anything remarkable close to that.
Yeah, they really haven't tried to get someone since Jordan Gross at left tackle. They've kind of ignored they completely ignored the position while Cam was here in terms of devoting top round picks for the offensive line. They really didn't start trying to do that until the end of Cam being here. They kind of focused on defense and getting defensive guys in until the very end. They started getting pieces for Cam like McCaffrey and Moore and others, but by then it was too late. What about our third round pick, quarterback Matt Corral? I've been hearing some really good things about Corral in terms of his release, his mentality, and everything. The one thing I had always noticed, though, from the past couple of weeks is that people talk about his character and how people tend to gravitate to him as a leader. We've been very vocal about how we felt Sam Darnold did not have that. I keep seeing places trying to guess when he might start. I'm starting to lean towards he might start week 1 because they're at the same spot in terms of learning the playbook. If he gets in there and uses his abilities to show that he can bring something different to the table than what we already saw from Sam Darnold last year, what do you think of the odds are of Corral beating out Darnold in training camp from what you saw just briefly this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to gauge just because of what we saw in those 2 days was a lot of twirling the ball between his legs, jump roping, and doing some stuff where he's just jumping up on a box. But we did get to see some
day one start. He can jump up. Day one start. Get him in there.
Yep, day one franchise.
Yeah,
we did see some 7-on-7 stuff. They did a lot of play actions, a lot of stuff rolling to his right and his left, trying to get him working on getting comfortable on the move, which I think he's very comfortable with already, having been in that offense. He was at Ole Miss. But the quick release is real. I mean, Desmond, I'm telling you, it is effortless. An effortless flick of the wrist. I've never seen anything like it. And it sometimes on those rollouts to the right, or not to the right, excuse me, to the left, those are some of those harder throws when you're trying to throw, kind of almost across the body a little bit. And it just comes out so fast, so natural, so effortless. And it just shoots off his hand. Like, I don't know how to describe it. You guys will see it when we get the training camp in Spartanburg and even in the preseason, but it's fascinating. And it's something to where if he was 2 inches, 20 pounds bigger, didn't play in that style of offense, maybe he's probably a top 5 pick just because of that release, the size. If he had Josh Allen's size, he'd be the number 1 overall pick probably. But
it looked like the Panthers had him very high on their board. They keep saying that they would have took him much earlier than what they did in the third.
They were comfortable taking him at 6, I think.
I think so too.
Those guys were gone at 6, like Icky and Evan Neal and Charles Cross. They were prepared to be like, "Yep, well, we can handle this. We'll take our chances now. Roll the dice." But they were able to get lucky enough to get Icky, trade back into the third, and get both guys. So it's the best of both worlds. Now, is Corral going to live up to that? We'll see. But the biggest question with him is the downfield throws. That's something we didn't really see a whole lot of at Ole Miss. We didn't really see much of it over the weekend either. It was a lot of dinks and dunks and really some quick passes, but they did take some shots downfield, and he delivered a couple of really good balls downfield, like into the end zone. So we'll see. He put the ball on the money. I will say that. He was not off target very much.
I'm rooting for him. Like I would love week 1 Panthers
Golden
versus
Corral.
Golden Corral walking out there to start it out. Is that what we're going with? Are we going with Golden Corral? Is that going to be the nickname?
I think it was the SB Nation site that started that maybe. I can't
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, I like it. It's a cool nickname.
And I think Golden Corral actually responded on Twitter, and they were like, we were happy to
Better than
be a part of the
others.
nickname, and free buffets for Matt. Don't bring the offensive line or something to that effect. So, I'm rooting for the kid. Like, I really, everything I've read about him, everything I've heard about him, the thing that drove me nuts. Speaking of Drew Brees, the thing that would drive me nuts about him and Tom Brady is their quick release. They usually have the ball out of their hands 2 seconds after they've snapped the ball or less. Like, they already know where they're going. It's like you can't get to him because he's getting rid of it so fast. And that's usually how they stay clean. And you're telling me we've added a guy finally with a quick release after years of Cam Newton holding the ball for 7 seconds, years of Jake Delhomme holding the ball for 7 seconds and then throwing it to the wrong team.
And you got a left tackle now.
And he's got a left tackle. Like,
and a right tackle, technically, with Taylor Moton.
And maybe if the gods favor us, Christian McCaffrey can play 15 games this year healthy. You got a guy with a quick release, and you've got McCaffrey as the safety valve, like sitting in the flat. Like, you just you start thinking about it. You don't want to get ahead of yourself, but you're just like, okay, you got a guy, DJ Moore, over here on the side, who's had 3,000-yard seasons to start off his career. You got Terrence Marshall in the mix. You got Robbie Anderson still over here. You got a little bit of speed. The line has been rebuilt. You got McCaffrey back there and Hubbard. You're starting to see a team get built around what they already had. And I'm kind of Corral might be the last piece. He might be that one guy. And I don't want people to think, oh, well, he's picked in the 3rd round. What's that going to amount to? Well, Russell Wilson was picked in the 3rd round, and look what that amounted to. Like, it's really more of a, can you fit into the system they're trying to put you into, as opposed to, are you a top 10 overall pick? Because there's top 10 overall picks that aren't in the league anymore, right, after a couple of years. So that means nothing. It's just a matter of, can you utilize your talent? Brandon Smith. Oh, go ahead.
Going back to your question, though, because I don't know if I really answered it. Day one, I don't think he'll start. I don't think that's a realistic possibility. And to be honest with you, just depending on how he progresses and matures, we may not even see him until week 15, 16, 17. I mean, that just might – if the Panthers roll out Sam Darnold, start week 1, which everyone expects, and they're kind of back and forth, hover around 500, they're not going to make any changes.
Yeah.
Why would
they? Why would they? That makes no sense. Yeah.
They're going to make sure that they throw him out there at the right time. And Matt Rule said this many, many times before. If you put a rookie quarterback out there before he's ready, and he goes out there and just it doesn't work, you could damage him. You do not want to do that.
Let me ask you this. One of our viewers, Joseph Fry, posed this question a little bit earlier on. What week do you think the Panthers get desperate for ticket sales and bring Cam back again? I wasn't going to post it, but then I remembered I saw a report a couple of days ago that, yes, Scott Fitter and Cam Newton are still in contact with each other through this whole situation. And it's starting to look like no other teams are going to pick Cam up. If he plays again, it would probably be with the Panthers. Do you bring Cam back in preseason so he's at the same level as everyone else and can try to learn this playbook? And if so, doesn't that mean it's a certain window you got to bring him back? Like, you got to bring him back before training camp. So you got to sign him before July? So really the hot spot's like the next 30 days, right? In terms of if they're going to bring Cam back in here or not. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think they really want to, I wouldn't say not bring him back, but I think they would rather not, just because they have so much money invested in Sam Darnold. Like, it's $18 million, and you don't want $18 million wasted on the bench. Now, is it a different story if Sam Darnold sucks halfway through the season and you want to see what you have in your rookie quarterback? Sure.
Yeah, that's a possibility. That could happen.
Unless Sam Darnold is off this roster, Cam Newton will not be on the roster. That is my opinion. Because now all of a sudden you have a crowded quarterback room. Some instances that's a good thing, but not here, because it's going to be just like the tail end of last season, where it's quarterback roulette, and we don't know who the quarterback's going to be on a week-by-week basis. You don't want to have that. Sam Darnold is going to be the starter unless they can find a way to move him, which I don't think is going to be possible with this $18 million.
It's the Baker Mayfield situation, but worse. Nobody's going to trade for him.
Well, this is what I feel for Baker Mayfield. I mean, this guy's actually I wouldn't say like a top end starter, but he's a quality starter in the league. He's won some damn games.
He's serviceable. Yeah, he's serviceable. He he's maybe, and see, I see people saying that he's hit a ceiling or something. We don't really know that. He's only played what 4 years, like,
and he's got a banged up shoulder for the last year or year and a half. And I mean, he
was
took the
Cleveland.
Cleveland Browns to the playoffs and won a dang game.
It was Cleveland. He made Cleveland nationally relevant for like 2 years. Like,
he took the Cleveland Browns from the laughing stock of the NFL to the second round of the playoffs.
To a place where Deshaun Watson was like, you know what? I'll go there. I'll go to Cleveland and play and make $250 million guaranteed. I have no problems going to Cleveland, Ohio. So, like, you don't get, were they State Farm commercials? I can't remember what commercials he was doing.
It was either that or Progressive. I can't remember.
It might have been Progressive, where he's like living in the stadium or whatever.
They're going to have to take him out for the end of that one. That's going to be an interesting.
And they might be in play still too. Baker Mayfield, Jimmy G, like all these vet quarterbacks that we kind of attached to Carolina.
That's a perfect example. If Jimmy G and Baker Mayfield can't get traded, what the hell makes you think Sam Darnold's going to be able to get moved?
Right. Exactly. What makes anyone think Cam Newton's going to get signed? You know, if they can't even get like moved in a six, give me a 6th-round pick for Sam Darnold. No, I don't want it. That's too expensive. Like Cam Newton,
and Cam specifically said he is not coming back to be 5-12 again. And he's only going to come back if it's the right situation for him and he feels like this team can win. I'm not trying to pick through the weeds here, but I'm just saying I don't think he will come back if Sam Darnold's on the roster, not only because the Panthers don't have they do have the financial means to do so, but it makes no sense to do that, to add another quarterback to that mix with a guy that's $18 million on the roster plus a rookie. But from Cam's perspective, it makes absolutely no sense because this team's not going to be that competitive with Sam Darnold at quarterback. And if Sam's still on the roster, they're going to go with Sam Darnold as the starting quarterback. So we saw it last year when we turned back to him.
I would think they'd put Corral out there before Cam. I mean, because he's the future, not Cam. Like, basically, we got to get to a point where we have to stop having to ask ourselves, is Cam Newton coming back?
Distance, and I say distance in a good way. Distance yourself from the idea of Cam Newton and the Panthers being together. Yeah. I'm not saying distance yourself from, or the Panthers should distance themselves from Cam Newton, as in, what he's done in his entire career for the organization.
Right.
From right now on, it just makes no sense. And honestly, there's a reason why Cam Newton is still out there. There could have been multiple other opportunities out there for him, but he's still a free agent. There's teams that went other directions, and there's a reason why.
You got to think, too, if the Panthers hadn't picked him up last year, it's safe to assume no one was going to pick him up last year. And he would have been out of football for a year and some change. I love Cam Newton. He's one of my favorite NFL players of all time. He's probably my favorite Panther of all time. And a lot of people online understand that, and they know that about me. But I think they think that I'm some sort of like you have the Cam homers, like the ones that feel like he can do no wrong. He's invincible. Give him a shot. He never got a fair chance. Blah, blah, blah. I'm in the boat of I'm ready to move forward. Like I don't want to go through another 500-year watching Cam become a shell of himself, because he's not going to get back to where he was. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Let's be honest. Would you rather go 8-9 with Cam Newton as your starting quarterback, or 8-9 with Matt Corral?
8-9.
I would think you want to go with the younger guy because thinks, dang, we can win 8 games with him as a rookie. Yeah,
I've seen 500 with Cam. Like, I don't want to.
He's not the long-term future. Like, we understand that. So there's no use of bringing him back unless it's to mentor Matt Corral. And you don't need 3 quarterbacks in that room. And honestly, for Cam too, and I hate to say this because I know he's a competitor and he still wants to play football, wants to get a Super Bowl ring before he retires, but it might not be a bad idea to take a page out of Luke Kuechly's playbook and say, you know what, let me get out of this game while I can in the shape that I'm in now, so that I can be 100% myself 20, 25 years down the road, and I'm still there 100% in the head for my kids.
He's got options too. Like he owns businesses. He's got some media stuff going on. Nah, he's straight. Like, he could literally retire today and get a studio job. I think he has a studio or something. He's got a cigar bar in Atlanta. He's got stuff in Charlotte. Like, he's got other things to occupy his time with. I think with him, just like all NFL players, when you get to that point of when you start thinking about retirement, you've already basically retired. And I don't think
he can even be an ambassador really for the Panthers. I'm sure the Panthers would love to have him in some way or fashion, to have him as a, either an ambassador or somebody that can help do something.
They brought Steve Smith back into the fold after he retired, and he's on the radio team. I mean, or the TV team. And that's worked out great. I think Cam could do something similar. I don't think he has a bad relationship with owner David Tepper. In fact, I think Tepper's the reason why he came back last year. And I think Rule's the reason why he didn't play, the last couple of games. I think Rule was just like, no, we let him go for a reason. I can't inject that back into this for what I'm doing. So to your points, I don't think it makes any sense to bring him back. I'd like to see him with Dallas or Kansas City or someplace in a backup role.
Like I've said,
just ride.
Baltimore or San Francisco would make a ton of sense.
Ooh, if they get rid of Jimmy G and turn over to Lance, bring Cam in, that'd be perfect.
Because you don't want to have Trey Lance out there by himself, and some random 24-year-old backup is probably not going to do anything.
Surprised he hasn't been attached to Seattle.
Seattle would make sense, I guess, a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
and Russell Wilson not been there, of course, but I'm saying that this roster is not ready to win right now. Baltimore, I think, makes sense because, you got Lamar Jackson, but as we saw last year, he could get hurt. And I think they could take some of those packages away in the goal line situation, the short yardage, where they can still run the exact same offense, where they can run the RPOs and they can run with Cam Newton on the read options, and he can take the beating instead of Lamar.
Yeah. Real quick before we get out of here, back to the rookie mini camp. Schuyler, what was the biggest surprise you saw during the weekend?
I would say probably the biggest surprise is kind of like a tie between Brandon Smith and Amari Barno. And the only thing I'll say about Amari Barno is it wasn't a surprise of what I saw him on the field performing, because from where we were allowed to stand, we really couldn't see much of what he was doing. But when I was able to see parts of him, he looked a lot bigger than I really thought he was even 2 months ago at the Combine, or 3 months ago at the Combine. So that's something that if his frame starts to fill out, he could be that Hassan Reddick, that outside linebacker edge hybrid role. And that's kind of what they want him to be. He's played linebacker in the past. They moved him to defensive end. I don't know if they moved him down at Virginia Tech or if that was out his junior college that they did that. The reason being is because he was thinking too much. He wasn't playing the game at full speed. I still think you're going to see, like, they tried to do that with Brian Burns, I think, early in his career. They were like, is he an outside linebacker? Is he a guy that's got his hand in the dirt?
Yeah.
I think Amari Barno is going to be the same thing. Like, he's going to be a guy that's his hand in the dirt, but maybe more of a stand-up edge rusher like Hassan Reddick. I don't think you're going to see him back at like a Will linebacker, Sam linebacker spot. And then the other guy was Brandon Smith, just freakishly athletic, as advertised, big, fast, and vocal too. I think that was one thing that really stood out to me. He was communicating a lot and really kind of pumping up some of his teammates on the defensive side of the ball too. So I like that out of those two guys as well.
And again, we went through this last week. If you missed it, you can catch it on the Bleav podcast network, where it's the one with all the Matt Rule draft classes, the last new episode we had before this one, where we talked about in this draft class, one of the traits that we saw once you got past Matt Corral in the third round, all the guys they picked all were freakishly athletic in some way, or really, really fast. They were very, very fast. Like whatever they were at the position. Brandon Smith, I think, was the fastest linebacker at the Combine. Barno was the second or third fastest DE at the Combine. The cornerback they drafted from Baylor late in the, I think, 6th round. His name escapes me. He was
Boogie Barnes.
Boogie Barnes. He was the fastest, almost the fastest ever at the Combine. He just missed it by like 2/100ths of a second or something nuts like that. He ran a 4.24, I believe, in the 40. That's
He's the reason why Troy Pride's no longer a Panther. And I'll say that, but just because of the speed. Troy Pride never had a chance, because when he got that injury, they traded for C.J. Anderson, they traded for Stephon Gilmore, they drafted Keith Taylor and J.C. Horn last year, they drafted Kalen Barnes this year, they re-signed Dante Jackson, and when you get Kalen Barnes, to me that was just like, okay, Troy Pride's going to be gone any time now. He failed the physical because of the ACL, and really Kalen Barnes and Troy Pride, they're kind of similar players, extremely fast. They got a long ways to go in terms of being in that cornerback rotation, more of a special teamer.
So we'll see how these guys pan out. Rookie minicamp concludes next week. We will dedicate the show to our schedule predictor for the Carolina Panthers. We wanted to wait for the smoke to settle a little bit from the schedule release. We'll go through each game, kind of talk it out in terms of what we think might be happening during that course of the season, and see where these Panthers potentially could end up. Are they a playoff team in disguise? Again, there's always one in both NFC and AFC that did not make the playoffs the year before that make it the next year, and they tend to come out of nowhere. No one really picked them. Will it be the Carolina Panthers? I don't know. We got to wait and see for next week. But if you want to get the latest info on the Panthers throughout the course of the week, Schuyler is the beat writer for Sports Illustrated for the Carolina Panthers, the Charlotte Hornets, and West Virginia, University of West Virginia Athletics. So definitely follow him at Callihan _ for the latest Carolina Panthers news daily. You can follow me on Twitter at DEZ _3505 or at Tobacco Radio for the latest in Panther coverage and much, much more. For Schuyler Callihan, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast. We will see you next Tuesday. Keep pounding.